Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our very first presentation, Supporting Open Educational Resources in Digital Commons, which will be presented by Ashley Sergiadis from East Tennessee State University. Ashley, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. As Jennifer mentioned, I will be talking about open educational resources in digital commons. I'm Ashley Sergiadis. I'm the Digital Scholarship Librarian at ETSU. I wanted to start off this presentation, I'm just making sure that my volume is there. Sorry. I want to start off this presentation providing a definition of OER, just so everyone is on the same page. So OER are teaching, learning, and research materials that are either one, in the public domain, or two, licensed in a way that provides everyone with free and perpetual permission to engage in 5 activities: retaining, remixing, revising, reusing, and redistributing. Essentially what that means is you can take those materials and you have the permission to customize them and then upload them online, like in a place that's digital commons. In this presentation, I'm going to go through 3 sections. The first section is the awards program. All of our open educational resources in our digital commons is because we have an awards program that feeds materials to our repository. So that's a really big part of our of why we have OER. The second is I'm going to go over some of the publishing support that we provide. And then the third section is a bit of the assessment that we've done of these OERs. So first, as I mentioned, I want to talk about our Open and Affordable Course Materials Awards program. Our awards program supports both open educational resources, so those materials that are free but also licensed for you to customize, as well as affordable course materials, so ones that are free but not licensed as open. One of the most common examples of that are library resources, as well as, news articles online that you can't necessarily customize, but you can point students to read. And we do offer a monetary incentive as part of the awards. So our awards start at $500. Right now, it's up to $5,000. And it's for instructors who implement these open and affordable materials into their courses. Usually they fall into 3 main tracks. There's adopters, so folks who are taking a textbook and replacing their costly textbook with it. Or taking a bunch of different open materials and replacing a textbook that's costing students money. There's adapters who are taking OERs online and customizing them and implementing them in their courses. And the last, creators who are starting from scratch. And the adapters and creators, those are the ones that are submitting material into digital commons. We do like to talk about this as a program. So beyond these monetary incentives, there are additional support. We provide support from the library as well as the Center for Teaching Excellence, who co-manages these awards with us, provide support to faculty, whether it's finding resources, answering any questions that they may have, whether about the awards program or OER in general. We provide the publishing support through Digital Commons, which will be my focus today, peer support through faculty learning communities, and then lastly, we provide some assessment support with surveys. So we survey their students as well as the faculty, and we share the results of those surveys to the faculty so they can see what their students are responding to in terms of the open and affordable materials that they're implementing in their courses. So right here is a timeline of our awards program. So you get a sense of how long we've been doing this, as well as how much money is put towards the awards program. This started in 2017, 2018. Our Student Library Advisory Council suggested that we allocate funds from the student library fee to open and affordable initiatives. So we got right on it. And then the next year in 2018, 2019, we launched this awards program. We had a spring deadline and $30,000 were available for the first round of awards. We also had $8,000 to supply for workshops. So if faculty attended a workshop and reviewed a textbook, they received $200. And this was in partnership with the Open Textbook Network, now known as the Open Education Network. And those workshops helped advertise the awards program, so they kind of fed into each other. We repeated this in 2019, 2020, because it was considered a 2-year pilot. So that time we had multiple deadlines throughout the academic year. We once again had $30,000 to spend for the awards, $8,000 for those workshops. And then we started to implement the open and affordable materials in the courses that year. So we often have people from different rounds going at the same time, because some faculty members will be implementing, the semester after they apply, and then some are taking a year or two to implement, particularly those that are submitting materials into Digital Commons. And now we are in the 2020-2021 year. Well, it's almost over, I guess, now. And we have had multiple deadlines. Our spring deadline just passed and we're reviewing those now. Our money dropped to $15,000, and some of it is funded now through the student library fee, but also the Center for Teaching Excellence is contributing. We are now implementing materials from 1819, 1920, and 2021. And lastly, we received a $100,000 grant through the Tennessee Board of Regents in order to expand the awards program to focus more on general education courses and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, as well as to be able to offer stipends again for workshops for faculty who attend and do an activity afterwards. So this has really worked into getting materials into Digital Commons. I don't think we would have gotten the OERs that we do unless we had this awards program. And this right here is a list. I'm going to put a link into the chat of what we have so far. So the ones with the little download icons, those are ones that are in progress. And we also probably will have a bit more in progress as we filter through the applications that we just received. So far we have 6 in the repository. One thing that we're big on is we don't just want textbooks. We want any sort of project that the faculty can imagine. So currently we do have 3 textbooks, but we also have one series that focuses on presentation slides, assignments, and readings, one that goes on videos, and one that is a podcast. So there's lots of different types of materials available through the OER collection. And I'm going to go through a couple of them later on. So now I'm going to move on to publishing support. I thought it was important to preface this to show what our staffing is like, because I think that definitely will affect how much support you can provide for these sorts of programs. So right now, there's me, the digital scholarship librarian, and I supervise 2 graduate assistants and 2 federal work study students who are undergraduates. And that's the only support that I have. Like I know a lot of librarians, I wear many hats. So I manage Digital Commons. I also manage the open and affordable initiatives, as well as anything scholarly communication related. And we also have faculty rank, so I'm doing research and service. So I had to be really particular as to what sort of publishing support I could provide realistically. We don't have press books or anything like that. We just have Digital Commons to help with the publishing. And my GAs and undergraduate student workers are fabulous, but they can't really take the reins and meet with faculty on their own. I usually have to give them the projects. And so that kind of frames the support that we could provide. I assume if you have a larger staffing, you could probably provide more support. So the first step in our publishing support is consultation, and this often aligns with the awards program. So faculty come to me and they may tell me about their project before they apply, or we may be having conversations after I've read their application and things just aren't exactly clear. And there's usually 3 questions that come up a lot during these consultations. The first one is it transformative enough to make it a unique item? So sometimes I have faculty come to me and, they say, well, I'm going to combine the even chapters of this book and the odd chapters of this book to make one book. But they're not necessarily editing the text, they're just putting the chapters in a certain order. So we usually do not award faculty who are essentially creating a reading list, essentially, where if you could do the same thing and just tell students, read this chapter, read that chapter, we don't include it into the repository. Another thing that comes up often is about copyright. Do you have the copyright to adapt the materials? So sometimes, the material that they want to adapt is underneath a Creative Commons license, which, if you're unfamiliar, they are licenses that tell the user what you can or can't do with the material. And some of the Creative Commons licenses allows for derivatives, so they allow for you to customize the materials, and sometimes they don't. So sometimes the faculty member didn't notice that it was underneath a license that didn't allow for derivatives. Sometimes faculty come to us wanting to use library materials, and sometimes that can work. We can figure out a way, these open materials you can adapt and these certain ones you can't, so reconfigure it. But then sometimes the bulk of their materials are copyrighted. And then lastly, another thing that comes up is, do you have a realistic timeline and vision of the materials? And this is really dependent on the awards program. I think if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be worried so much about the timeline. We would just say, get it to us when you can. Because we are managing an awards program, we have to think realistically, if we give them some funds to do this up front, are they going to produce a product? I think the longest a person has taken is about 2 years, and that's acceptable to us because they had a strong vision of the material. After that consultation phase and they've been giving the award, there's 3 main support services that we provide. The first one is copyright. So we answer any general copyright questions. Some examples of the copyright questions I get are, just simply, can I use this in my material? Is this copyrighted? One question I get a lot is, well, I want to paraphrase this journal article. If I paraphrase it and include a citation, is that okay? Which I think most faculty know that if they're writing a journal article and they were doing a lit review, they wouldn't even think of it. But because there's, so much thinking about copyright and worrying about breaking copyright law, you get questions like that where you can say it's an easy yes. You're just essentially doing a lit review. You can post that online. I also advise on Creative Commons licenses. So we allow the authors, in the past, we've allowed authors to choose which Creative Commons license they use. Our stipulation is they have to use one that allows for derivatives, because these are open educational resources, and that's the whole point of them. And more recently, we will be also using non-commercial Creative Commons licenses because at our university, the faculty do not own the copyright of their course materials. It is the university. And so the university advised us to do non-commercial. Then lastly, we also help with securing rights to copyrighted materials. And this is always offered, but usually not taken up. The only time we've had to do this was our art appreciation presentation slides had a lot of artwork, and the faculty member did a great job going through them, finding ones that were either in the public domain or Creative Commons license. But there were a couple that she couldn't because they were modern or contemporary. So I created an email template. I emailed them out to the various entities, and the ones that we couldn't secure the rights to, we were able to do a fair use workaround. The next publishing support that we provide is accessibility. And accessibility takes a really long time to do. And so I wish we could provide more accessibility resources. A lot of it does fall to the faculty. So we provide them the resources to do it. And then if they reach out to us with needing additional help, we will. The main items that we help out with are alternative text for images. This was really major with that art appreciation course, who had so many images that we needed to provide alternative text for. Video and audio, we offer to clean up subtitles or transcripts. Our videos and podcasts did not take us up on that offer, but I've had to do subtitles for other projects, and it takes a long time and dedication to do that sort of work. And then lastly, for text, I've had to add a lot of bookmarks for longer text. One thing I want to do with text eventually is ensuring that the reading order is correct. But a lot of time our faculty members are creating the text in Word and are using the appropriate headers and everything based on the resources we gave them. And then lastly, it's organization and promotion. And this takes up a lot of most of the time. So with our faculty, we say, you create the materials and we will do the rest. So at the end of their project, they give me what they've done. I look at it, I determine what sort of series should be in digital commons. Should it be a book gallery, a regular series, image gallery, that sort of thing. I do the metadata fields. We do all the metadata. We do all the uploading of materials. We do get feedback from the faculty, so there is a collaboration in terms of that. But most of the time, whatever we've decided, they're usually fine with. And then lastly, we add the materials to the OER repositories. So primarily we add them to OER Commons and Merlot because we want these materials to be able to be found where people are looking for OERs. And those two also filter into OASIS and OER Mason MetaFinder. So essentially they're in the 4 major OER repositories that are out there. And specifically OER Commons is really big because the state of Tennessee is using OER Commons as their hub of OER materials. So if I add it in there, it can be then added to our East Tennessee State University group, which is then added to our Tennessee hub. And I just wanted to go and just show examples of what we've done. So as I mentioned, about half of them are text. And so with those, we uploaded the PDF. One thing that we were always made sure to do is upload the original copy or whatever they use to edit the material. One of my pet peeves when I'm looking at OERs are people that only upload PDFs and then expect people to be editing, a 300, 200 page PDF, where a lot of people would be working in Word or a different sort of editing software. And that will come up when we look at assessment. In terms of the more specific or the more unique items, we have this art appreciation open educational resource. And in our open educational resources collection, if it's a text, we upload the PDF. But if it's one of these unique resources, we link out to a separate site. that has all the materials. I felt it was too much to try to add all these materials into that book gallery. And with this one, they are a set of lessons, and they have presentation slides, reading lists, as well as assignments. And so we have the whole collection here that someone can download, but it will take a while because it's a lot of material. And then people can download the PowerPoints via zip file, the reading list via zip, as well as the assignments. So they can download them all at the same time. So they're not having to go through each individual lesson and click them, but they can if they want to. And so the lessons are provided individually. Let's see, that may take a while to upload. I wanted to just kind of, this one is one of our unique ones. As it downloads, I wanted to also show the podcast series that we did. This one is very similar, as we linked out to another page. You have the podcast that you can download. You can also download the transcripts, but we use the native streaming in Digital Commons. This faculty member has these available on other websites, like Apple, as well as his own website, but he wanted it to be native streaming in Digital Commons instead of embedded. And we also link to his author website. We're very much into, you know, if you have it living somewhere else online, we want to link to that. We want to get you as much credit to your sites as well as to our site. And lastly, the video series, instead of doing native streaming, his all lived on YouTube. So we do have the initial download that you can do the video. We have the subtitles that you can download, but instead of native streaming, we embedded the YouTube video because that was his preference. So we tried to think about what the faculty want to do and accommodate them. We also did all the thumbnails. That took a while. So like little details like that take a little bit of time. And this is just the art appreciation, just an example of what it looks like. You know, there's information on how to adapt it in the copyright. She did, instead of doing a textbook, she did presentation slides where it has the information that you would have in a textbook kind of boiled down with all the images. Now I'm going to go back and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the assessment of these materials. So we surveyed the students and we asked, how would you rate the quality of the text for this course? And this is from about 150 students, and you know, about 51 said same as the other text that we use. 46% said better, and then I think 4 out of the 150 said worse. So students really liked these materials. Some of the feedback we received with for example, with the art appreciation course was that it was really customized for what they needed to learn. There wasn't extra text that they had to sift through. The PowerPoints really got to the heart or the meat of what they needed to learn. The video series that I showed, the students enjoyed that he went over step by step exactly how to do things in that digital animation course. So students like that it's free, but they really enjoy how the faculty took the time to create and customize it for them. And we also surveyed the faculty members, and they mentioned barriers. And with our publishing support, we really tried to tackle these barriers. So the biggest one, of course, is time. We try to help faculty limit the amount of time they have to do with, you know, doing the copyright support, doing accessibility support. A lot of that boils down to, we want to try to save you time. And that's usually when people ask us to help them, is when they say, I don't have enough time to do this. Can you all do this? They also mentioned that they have limited resources. This is primarily for people who are trying to adapt and collect different materials and transform them. A lot of times there may not be as many resources as they initially thought were out there. The third is technology, not knowing exactly how to create the works that they're wanting to create. And then lastly is copyright. And a lot of our services deal with copyright as to once you find these resources, what can you actually do with them? Now, I wanted to go over also the downloads that we've received in Digital Commons, because I think it shows some interesting trends. So this right here is the textbooks. As you can see, we've gotten a fair amount of downloads. There are a fair amount of additional files. So those would be the files that people would be downloading to edit or adapt for their courses. These downloads, all the downloads I'm going to be showing are from about a year and a half of being online. And with the additional files, we see this a lot with the downloads with OER. And I've managed Digital Commons repositories for a while, and I don't see as many additional file downloads as I do with these OER series. So this right here is the videos for Principles of Digital Animation. You can see that 1,500, we've had 1,500 downloads. You know, there is a fair amount of those additional ones, but then we had 12,000 when you look at the Plum metrics, 12,000, which come from Digital Commons, but a lot of it comes from YouTube. So we can tell that a lot of people are looking them at YouTube, and only a smaller, you know, minority of that is actually downloading them, which is to be expected. The podcast for computer organization, this one is where you see a huge amount of additional files being downloaded. What amused me about this one is this project is a podcast based on a textbook that the instructor created, and yet the most amount of downloads that we receive are from the transcripts. So I don't know what that means, but it seems like people are reading it more than listening to it, at least in the Digital Commons site. It could be completely different on his website or the Apple podcast site. And you can see that there's not a lot of streams of it as well. And then lastly, the art appreciation has been the most popular. It's gotten, you know, over 6,000 downloads in the last year and a half. And you can see that there's a fair amount of those additional files because they provide the PowerPoints and the Word documents. And so you can imagine as an instructor, you wouldn't want to edit a PDF of slides. You would want the PowerPoint. So that was my presentation, and I'll stop to see if there are any questions. Laura asked, can you share the accessibility resources that you share with your faculty? Yes, I can. I believe we have a toolkit that we tend to share with them. So I'll provide those in the link. I'll look them up right after this presentation and share them in the chat.
We have time for more questions if anybody has more questions. I want to thank you, Ashley, for this presentation. As somebody who is running an OER stipend program at my university and has created a space in Digital Commons for faculty created OER, but has not yet loaded anything in. This is very timely for me. We just finished our first year of funding, so we're just starting to see the products come in, and we'll be loading in things soon. So this was perfect for me.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's probably my favorite collection in digital commons that I've done, just because it kind of intersects all my job positions. So a lot of times I feel like I'm either doing OER, or I'm either doing digital commons, or I'm either doing scholarly communications. And I feel like with this project, it intersects everything that I do.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to see all the different ways that you can leverage digital commons for the different forms of scholarship that are happening on campus. And I'm looking forward to putting in faculty created OER here. I have a question though. I know you say you help with copyright, and you provided stipends for folks who were reviewing books for OEN. Have you done any of the training programs through OEN or Creative Commons?
I did the Summer Institute and Summit. At least this is what it was like when we joined back when it was Open Textbook Network. You join, and then they pay for a person from your institution to go to their Summer Institute and Summit and learn about OER. So I did that at the very beginning of our program. I've not done their certification. My colleague Phil Smith has. He's from Center for Teaching Excellence. And I've joined their work groups. There was a work group that they did on it's tenure, looking OER as faculty scholarship. So we looked a lot at how OER is incorporated into tenure and promotion policies. But I haven't done their official certification or Creative Commons. It's on my to-do list of things to do eventually. Have you done any of them?
Yes, Alabama offered the Alabama Commission on Higher Education offered scholarships this past year for people who worked with copyright to do the Creative Commons certification. So I just finished that. Very worthwhile. And, I thought I knew Creative Commons, but I learned quite a bit about Creative Commons. And I did do the Open Education Network. I unfortunately was in the cohort that was right in the middle of COVID. So we didn't do the in-person portion of the program, but we did. I came out with an action plan, and it's incredibly worthwhile. So if anybody's working with OER, I highly recommend both of those programs.
Yeah, and I know Spark, they also have a program that lasts through the fall and spring semester coming up. I think the deadline's May 28th.
Yes.
It's also available.
That one's pricey.
Yes.
I will say. For those of us who are at smaller, universities with smaller budgets, it's that's a harder one. But Open Ed is actually coming up later this year, which will be fully online again. So if people are interested in learning more about open education resources, Spark, OpenStax, and University of Maryland, and I think University of Colorado are all partnered together. They're still redefining what open ed looks like. But yeah. So let me check the chat here. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So we'll go ahead and we'll stop here for now, and we will meet back right at